Well, I see we got a few people present. Hello, Clive. Hello, Mark. You guys let me know out there in the chat if you can hear me okay. Haven't taken any measurements in the past several days. I've pretty much just left this thing sitting, and it's stabilized there at around, I don't know, 201 or 202 millimeters on that scale. So, just let it sit for a minute or two. It's oscillating slightly, but that, it just does that. I've been in and out. I've raised and lowered the garage door about 20 minutes ago, and that probably upset it a little bit, but there's not much movement. Very, very little, actually. So I think what I want to do tonight is we'll start this thing oscillating. I'll move the weights out of the neutral position that they're in right now to one side or the other and let it swing full deflection that direction and then immediately reverse them. This seems to be the best procedure to get it into a stable oscillation. So I think we'll do that. I might let it go one full oscillation in that first time when I move it out of the neutral position. Hello, Peter Harrington. So I think we've probably watched the little red dot enough. There's about 8 minutes of live stream. So it's oscillating somewhere, I don't know, from here down to there, just right in there somewhere. So I'll move my little green circle out of the way so that thing's not bothering us anymore. So let's see, which direction would we like to go first? I think I'll move them over into the west position. So let me do that. So there we go. And we got a time lapse started too. Perfect. Hey, Snark, what's going on? So just look at the position that the large balls are in now. And quite obviously, that's going to try to make the balance rotate clockwise if we were looking down on top of it. So that will cause the laser dot to move upscale to a higher number, which is what it's doing. It's not me doing it, it's gravity doing it. I'm pretty much finished with testing. I just thought it wouldn't hurt to run a few more tests. There's a couple in the series that, you know, some might say are a little bit dodgy. Test early on with this tungsten wire when the oscillation period wasn't that stable. So I don't know. We'll look at it. I don't know that replacing them is going to do anything in terms of the averages. We'll see what happens, but I'm just recording the data as I get it. It is what it is. So gravity attracted you, did it, Snark? I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to mess up your sleep patterns. Alan Evans, yes, yeah, absolutely. Gravity is definitely still working. And I should be on in Discord, Alan, if you want to join. This is just going to be kind of a relaxing evening. I didn't pay any attention to the time when I actually moved the balls. Let me see. I can probably figure that out from the time lapse. Okay, we shot 13 frames. So that's 4.3 minutes.
I can tell you exactly when it moved, when they stopped moving blue. 6:18 on your clock.
Oh, okay, great.
I
So,
just rewound the
yeah,
live stream.
yeah. So 6:26 is going to be when we reach this maximum on this side. Right at 6:26. So at that point in time, I think I will go reverse them. I've had better success getting stable oscillations if I do it this way. Getting into stable oscillations quickly. Take it to a maximum extreme and then immediately go to the other side. You have to be kind of careful when you reverse these. I found out if you do it at the wrong time, you can catch it at almost the resting point on the other position of the masses. And if you do that, the damn thing will virtually just stop. Then you don't have any oscillations to look at. It's not all bad. I mean, the resting positions, I've taken a lot of data where that's exactly what I was recording, was the resting position, not really uh, doing the oscillation analysis. It can be done either way.
I'm gonna guess measuring the oscillations gives you better data than trying to actually just find the resting position.
I think it does because you can get those measurements more quickly. Um, if you're trying to wait for the oscillations to completely die out, what you don't know is, has this thing drifted in the meantime? How much drift took place between the time you made the first measurement until it's finally stable again and you're making the second measurement? That's that was something Cavendish was concerned about. It's something I'm concerned about too, because I've seen these things wander up and down. Although this tungsten doesn't seem to be doing it. It doesn't seem to want to wander very much. When I say wander, I mean drift.
Yeah.
It's been pretty stable here for the last few days. Here we come on 626. I'm going to go move them now. So there we go. Now all hell's going to break loose. So what have you been up to, Alan? Well, let's see. Who we got out here in the chat? In Axe, I guess I haven't seen you before. For some reason, you're not a blue person. You got to be blue if you're going to hang around in here, so I'll fix that. See you, Snark. Take care, buddy. Doug, how are you? Hello, Brad. Yeah, Brad, I think it would work with granite. I think so. No reason why it wouldn't. You just won't see as much deflection, and that's pretty linear with the amount of mass. I'm thinking about, just because it's real cheap, I'm thinking about picking up a couple of bags of sand, just place sand. It comes in 50-pound bags. But if I do that, I'm going to have to sit them on this table. And when I sit them on there, I will probably vibrate the enclosure a little bit. So that will cause the balance to become a pendulum in the other direction. We've seen this before. You guys have all seen this, I'm sure. It's not affecting the rotation of it. It's just making it swing back and left to right as you're looking at it on the screen here, instead of not only just rotating that direction, but swinging like a pendulum toward the front and the back of the case. As I say, it doesn't really change the measurement. It's just irritating watching the little damn laser dot jump up and down. But that dies away pretty quickly, and if I'm careful enough, maybe I won't disturb it. I'll just have to try it and see. That's $10 worth of sand. I'll do it for the fun of it. I won't do a damn thing because Brian Leakey wants it. After the way Brian has treated me, no, I don't think I care to demonstrate anything for him or any of those guys, to tell you the truth. I'll do it if you guys want me to, not those guys. 15 viewers. Hey, welcome everybody. Hello, Eric. Good to see you. "21 minutes and 6 seconds to be
Have you
exact, Eric."
got, Blue, have you got a washing machine or something running in your vicinity?
That's the air conditioner.
Ah, okay.
That's the air conditioner, and there's not much I can do about it. Well, I suppose I could, though. Think of it. Let me just turn it off.
At least it's not as bad as my washer dryer going off onto its 1400 RPM spin cycle.
Yeah. It's off now, so that'll put a stop to that irritating thing. Hello, Mission Control. Welcome. What's the red dot doing? Oh boy.
Yeah. It's kind of really shifting tonight, isn't it? Or it seems like it.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to an extreme at about 6:34. This thing is consistently running just a touch over 8 minutes for a half cycle, half period.
Which, of course, basically shows that the experiment is what they would call repeatable, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fairly impressive part of all this when I put the report together and do some final videos on it, because I've done these time lapses at least over the last 3 or 4 measurements, maybe more than that. And you can lay them on top of each other and see how similar they are. And that's a measure of how successful your test actually is, just being able to be repeatable about it.
Yes, because I think a lot of people forget that one of the things when they talk about repeatability of experiments is it's not just other people being able to repeat it, it's yourself being able to repeat it over and over again and having that data.
Yeah. That's a very, very sensitive measurement, and you're not gonna get exactly the same number every time you run this test. It just won't happen. But they ought to be within some reasonable, you know, deviation, and they are.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was over on MC Toon's Discord earlier and joining in the phonetic alphabet um, fun games he's got there, and I just I just used a couple of kids' ABC books that I've got for doing it with, and the one that I think the one that applies here is the letter T for tolerance from the ABCs of Engineering from the Baby University series.
Yes, Jared in the chat, absolutely. That's the reason we do it multiple times. That's why I kept saying when we only had like one test, it means nothing. It's absolutely meaningless. You do it 20 times and you got something. This will be, I've done 30 so far, 2 of which I eliminated as it was sort of customary. I threw out the high and the low in that first series of tests, so I ended up with 14. And I've got 14 right now in this series. So I'll probably end up doing the same thing. I'll just add a couple more tests on the end of it, and we'll get rid of the high and the low. And take a look and see if there's any outliers that need to be addressed. But the results are remarkably good. I won't say any more than that at this point until I finish analyzing all this stuff. It's better than than I could ever have hoped for. But then again, I didn't have to worry about silly things like proving whether gravity is real or not. That's not ever been a concern. And that helps.
Was that ever a concern
of Cavendish? No, of course not. We absolutely know gravity is real. The question here is, what is the gravitational constant? That's the question we're answering, not whether gravity is real or not.
although of course Cavendish was doing it so he could actually calculate the mass of the Earth, wasn't he?
Well, density, yeah, he was calculating the overall average density of the Earth, which he had everything. If it had been customary at Cavendish's time to state the Newtonian equation the way we see it today, he had all the information he needed to state a value for big G, but it wasn't at that point in time that the form of the equation we use today was not a common thing. G was just simply implied. If you say the force of attraction is proportional to the product of the masses divided by the square of the distance between their centers, you've automatically said there is some constant of proportionality, and that would be G. And if we add it in, then it's no longer proportional, it's equal. So.
And back then the common form was to actually just leave it at proportional to, was it?
Yeah. Well, they were smart people. You didn't have to spell every damn thing out to them. like today with a lot of the the people that ascribe to this concept of the Earth being flat. What do you make of Ranty deciding to finally
Well,
admit it's not a flat thing anymore?
um, I get a feeling it's something that he's been coming round to for quite a while since, having handed off his YouTube channel to Brandon.
That's the
Um,
first thing I thought of when he did that. When Brandon took over, I thought, yep, I think Randy has seen the handwriting on the wall.
yeah, I think there must have been so many doubts um, of where, in his head, and I'm guessing that photo from back in January, from a location that he knows, with such detail in the mountains for him to be able to look at. It's really hard to refute, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they can all stick their head in the sand and deny uh, the obvious, and they do it all the time. Uh, but at some point, all of this just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think Ranty's big claim all the time have been, show me irrefutable proof of drop, and then somebody's finally shown him irrefutable proof of drop, and he isn't really left with anywhere to go, is he?
Nope. That'll pretty much
And I
do
think
it.
it took a lot.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say, I think it took an awful lot of courage to go on there live with conspiracy cats and admit it.
Randy's a fairly decent guy, I think. Um, and I think I did maybe one debunk of one of his. Hello, Declan. How are you, buddy? I think I did one debunk of one of Randy's videos at one point, but he just got the flight path wrong, if I recall, when he was trying to analyze some flight from Australia to South Africa or something, or
Oh, the
not South Africa to South America.
I think it was the Sydney. Was that the Sydney Santiago flight?
Yeah,
That's the one they always. That's the one they always. It's the one they always say doesn't exist.
right. The one you can just go right now and buy a ticket for, right? That one.
Yeah. I'm not saying that Ranty ever. I'm not saying that Ranty ever said that that flight didn't exist, but a lot of flat earthers do.
I don't think Randy. I never heard Randy say that. He could have, but I never heard it. If he did, well, the only issue I ever had over at Randy's show when I dropped by there is anytime Bob Nodell saw me in the chat, he immediately banned me, and then I would send Randy an email and say, "Hey, can you do something about your lapdog?" And Randy would fix it. And the very next time Nodell would see me, bingo, banned again. But Nodell's just a jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Declan. He sort of struck me that way too. He wasn't totally sold on the idea. J. Daniel Kramer, welcome. See if we can make you a moderator too. Everybody gets to be moderators on this show. I figure I'm big blue and all the peoples need to be blue too. So, or at least you guys are blue on my screen. Mission Control wants to know before Flat Earth sparked off, had I ever encountered the same level of delusion and stupidity? Yeah, with certain things, I suppose so. Uh, Before I was aware of Flat Earth, that there was anybody seriously interested in it. And that's just been 2.5 years ago or so when I first ran across this silly nonsense. But I was aware of other conspiracy theories, the moon landing deniers, and all of that. Um, which to me is nearly the same as this flat Earth nonsense. Shout out C4, hey man, $5 super chat. Why do flat earthers hate blue smalls? I, for one, happen to love them. Well, thank you, C4.
Now, the funny thing that gets me about moon landing deniers is that all the ones that are pushing for the fakeness of images because of JPEG compression artifacts in scanned photographs.
Well,
Because
yeah, you take it. They take actual film photographs,
film, yeah,
that will
yeah,
now, because they're 15th or 20th or 30th or 50th generation JPEGs, and claim JPEG compression error. But wait a minute, why don't you go back and get a clean original version of that picture and see if you see any JPEG issues with it? And the answer is
you
hell
know
no.
that you can go to the NASA website and get the uncompressed TIFF files, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
They're t-
I know that I think they're only 8-bit, but I mean, even so, that it's 8-bit uncompressed TIFF. There will be no JPEG artifacts in it.
no,
Now, I'm not saying that the images are not fake. I'm just saying they're looking for the fakeness in the wrong place. It is theoretically possible to have made all those images, to have faked all of those images on film, but it would be a heck of a lot harder to have done, especially as a lot of it's on transparency.
yeah. Hello, Real Cygnus. What's going on, man? Mark 10 brings up climate change denial. I agree with that too. Uh, we can argue all day and all night about the cause of what's really causing climate change, if you want to argue about that. But the people that just simply deny it's even happening are idiots. Obviously, the climate is changing.
Yeah.
That is And I happen to think we had a lot to do with it, or have had a lot to do with it. Maybe not everything. I may start doing a little bit of stuff on that. May start doing a little bit of stuff on some of this, some of these space deniers too. Because honestly, I think flat Earth is just dead. They have run out of excuses. They run out of ideas, and it's just the same old regurgitated uh, crap day after day after day.
I think I have to agree with Jared's post in the chat uh, that he's surprised more of them don't point to the movie Capricorn 1 as some sort of argument that it was all faked.
Yeah, really.
What, you mean the film Capricorn 1's not a documentary?
Oh,
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
well, given their inability to separate fact from fiction, I could easily see them thinking it was a documentary. Yeah, to answer Eric in the chat, yeah, I spent my career working in the field of air pollution control, so um, that's a far cry from climate change science for sure. But I know a lot about the equipment that we install today and have been installing since for a long, long time, but heavily involved in the installation of stuff since the early 1970s. So I know how that went. I know that I sort of understand that. Well, I understand very well the ideas that are floated around from time to time about injecting aerosols into the upper atmosphere, uh, especially some benign type substance, calcium based, calcium sulfate or something like that, fine particulate that would block some of the sun. I think that may have been one of the problems we accidentally created, to be honest with you. Uh, early in the game, in the early late '60s and early '70s, the only thing we really had the ability to control were particulate emissions, and we were quite good at that. Uh, we could reduce particulate emissions to almost nothing. What we weren't too good at is controlling gaseous emissions. So one of the first thing we got pretty adept at was the control of sulfur dioxide. And there are a variety of scrubbing methods that get rid of that. And then focus shifted to other items like nitrous oxides, oxides of nitrogen, um, that are inherent in the combustion process, worse in some types of boilers than others, uh, and so forth and so on. But effectively, we left the CO2 in the stack because we don't have a good way of taking it out. But we took all the particulate out that went with it. So uh, that was a good thing. I'm not arguing that we ought to put it back in there. Hell no. But uh, I think it probably uh, increased the rate with which we've seen our atmosphere change. So there's a lot of work to do in the future. Now that I probably managed to put everybody to sleep. Ozone and hydrofluorocarbons. Yeah, the fluorocarbon thing was a problem, big problem. It just loves to eat up ozone. But I believe that's pretty much behind us now. Is the red dot still doing its dance? I haven't been watching it.
Yep.
I'm sure it is. It always does. Funny thing about a successful experiment, you can just do it over and over and over again. And Cavendish was a very successful experiment, no doubt about it.
That's almost the definition of insanity.
It really is, Larry. It is. Hello, Rob Barton. How are you? Have you been out measuring the Earth again, Larry? Or what have you been up to?
Oh, it's kind of just a background hobby in my neighborhood. Got gear in my back seat and tripods in my car, and I have a tendency to pull what's called a drive-by, what I call a drive-by shooting. Pardon my French. Well, you see, I live in a valley, and it's the whitest part of the Shenandoah. And so there's the Coast Mountains on the west and the Appalachians on the east. And as a tip of the hat, it just also happens to be right within a mile of the, I live within only about 2 miles of the Mason-Dixon line. And on these ridges are a couple of very prominent antennae, which are about 1,600 feet above the valley and on the Appalachians. And there's another one that's a full 2,000 feet above the valley on the west. And some years ago, I was dealing with, a little piece of homegrown software that, I was trying to deal with astronomical observation for azimuth and really trying to get good at it. So I needed test data to, you can't just, cut and paste. Of course not. So I needed test data. And so I thought I'd position these antennae to see how good. I mean, really, technique and details, you get a couple of good measurements and you think you're done. But to be statistically significant, repeat the experiment. I went at it,
You dropped out on us, Larry.
experience.
Yeah, now you're
Pardon
back.
me? Oh, yeah.
You're back now.
So for a couple of years, of course I thought I was really good at it because, professionally I've been at it, but I was really trying to address a lot of the finer points like gravity deflections and the software. And so I had this test data, and then after a couple of years or a year or two of that, I went through and ended up repeating the whole exercise with more refined equipment, more refined technique, and more refined little piece of software. And then I did it again. Again, these are, like all summer long projects kind of thing. Saturday here, Sunday there, to see repeatability. So even at 20, 30 miles away, I could repeat in the, 20 centimeter range in horizontal positioning. Well, that played out, and then I realized, well, I had all these vertical angles, and so I started to address the elevation factor, due to refraction. And I put that all together and found very, very high compliance with my 100-year-old textbook. And so now the repeating of that is to further put together the statistical analysis and watch refraction change seasonally and even through the course of, morning versus noon. So yeah, hardly a Sunday goes by that I don't put the gun up and take an angle 16, 18, 20 miles away, which just blows Mavitt away and SE Montreal. You can't do that at 20 miles, 30 miles. Or Lemon with his, whole thing with theodolites don't work very well at great distance. But at 20, even at 10 to 25 miles, the elevation of the antennae, I can get that to a standard deviation of about 1.5 feet. And again, they're over 1,000, quarter mile to 2,000 feet above valley floor. And the vertical angle is very, very slight. And one of the things I got to get together is a pretty good presentation, because Lemon, he continually carries on about, vertical compression. And you hear vertical compression all over the place. All over the place. Oh, it's vertically compressed. It's vertical compression. Well, you tell me, Blue, can you compress anything below zero? Or is it's asymptotic, right? It's asymptotic. You have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's asymptotic. So I was seeing how I have a compendium of a large data set. I was looking at the refraction. Now, Sin Cleanser says, refraction, we don't know what it is. We don't know anything about it. And even Lemon, refraction is all crazy. It's all crazy. But I'm finding a very, very consistent condition of refraction. And the refraction angle to something that's elevated, not skimming the ground, not going over water, I found a very uniform 4.05 arc seconds per mile. And that's valid, and we're again from 1 to 27 miles. The thing is, at the far extreme, at 27.69 miles, I have to go up the far mountain range and shoot across the valley. So now I'm up very high, and the far tower is only 400 feet above me. And the vertical angle is negative.
Something doesn't seem right about that. If
so the point being that if it's vertical compression, how do I get a negative vertical angle? Because compression can't go past zero. It's linear. It's 4.05 arc seconds, linear. So it hits zero and goes right on past as a slope, mx plus b,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you quote mx plus b to them, they will, what the hell is that? Well, I could ask Leaky because he'd explain it to me. But and of course you've got refraction. So I have this negative vertical angle of 1 arc minute. Just a beautiful angle because it's so close to 90. But refraction makes the angle too big. So when you subtract off refraction for the elevation calculation, the angle gets another 200 or another 112 arc seconds lower. So geometrically, it's 170 arc seconds below my local eye level or local horizon, horizontal, or the astronomic horizon. And they don't even like the term astronomic horizon. Sinclair said, that's my problem. Just you calling it an astronomic horizon. Well, that's because when I level up the gun, I'm looking into clear space. At 2,000 feet, I'm looking above all the far terrain, which is higher, but I'm looking, the crosshair goes right above it, and refraction is actually, refraction makes it go above it even more than what someone would optically expect.
Let me shout out JSS Tiger in the chat for a $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Keep destroying flat Earth. Well, as Rob Barton points out, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, and it really is. All you got to do is just walk around.
It's even less work.
Yeah, it takes nothing to do it, but
it's even easier than shooting fish in a barrel. It's more like just throwing jump cables in a barrel and watching them all die at once.
The one thing that marginally annoys me about having to deal with flat earthers is that throughout my 20s, I regularly took recordings that essentially recorded the curvature of the Earth at around 200 miles, using a system for which refraction is basically zero, or at least standard refraction is basically zero. And I wasn't allowed to keep any of the actual results because, oh dear, they were classified military information. But the results turned out to show that the Earth was essentially a spherical surface with the accepted radius, at least within the distance that the radar could see.
The shape of the Earth is so basic that, yeah, it's like, you know, trying to prove the Earth is a sphere. It's like proving the existence of air. I mean, sunrise, sunset, eclipses, we're done. South Pole, extra done. Tides, yeah, we got it. So we move on, and there's no deep dive into proving the shape of the Earth, because once you look out your window and see the sunset and watch the stars go around the South Pole and North Pole, yeah, okay, we're done, moving on.
Yeah, but
Oh,
one picture from 1972 is all you need.
yeah. One photograph taken on film in a single shot.
Oh no, guys, that's photoshopped. They said so. NASA said so. Didn't you guys? Come on, get up to speed.
No, wait, no.
I mean, they
Long
actually
before-
admitted that the blue marble was photoshopped. Come on, where are you guys?
Not that blue marble.
No, the existence of the South Pole, you're done.
South Pole is fake. Come on, there's an ice wall. You can't get there. It's like an infinite plane beyond the ice wall, right?
And there's no point in even debating that. So yeah, the shape of the Earth was known before the invention of digital camera. The shape of the Earth was known before the invention of the camera. The shape of the Earth was known before the invention of the telescope. The shape of the Earth is just known.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, it is.
Now dimensions. That's where it got sophisticated, because it was believed to be a sphere for a long time, and then as mapping technologies and survey technologies got better and better, they noticed the edge match when different, you know, like Germany and France's maps would butt up against each other. They were noticing it was a little different. They said, wait a minute, we need to answer that question. And so, yeah, they said, how many miles is 1 degree of latitude? And of course, they both had their own ideas of it. They said, why is it different? So they set out and measured it and proved beyond a shadow of doubt, the shape of the Earth is not a sphere. It's slightly oblate.
Has to be.
Yeah, but if
Slightly.
you had a pool ball the size of, you know, if you had a, how's it go? You had a model of the Earth the size of a pool ball, you would almost not notice it. I mean, it might be a little.
If you shrink the Earth to the size of a pool ball, it would still qualify for tournament play.
Right, and it would also be much smoother than a normal pool ball, because of the, you know, the difference between the highest and lowest points is, you know, well within the. It's not something that you can't machine into a pool ball.
And point being is that even in 1760, they could detect that through accurate measurement of meridian surveys in Lapland, across France, Ecuador, and even Mason and Dixon's contributed. Mason and Dixon line is actually a couple of different lines, particularly the north-south border between Delaware and Maryland, and Mason and Dixon had surveyed that, and the Academy of Sciences Paris contracted with them to survey it again better, and they did, and that went into the data set that came up with the slightly oblate ellipsoid. So even in 1760, they could spot that tiny oblateness by measuring the transit of stars at zenith. And when, you know, the one is, why would I look to the sky to measure what's at my feet? I said, because you want the best possible answer, that's why.
Oh, no, you can't do that, though. You have to, like, get out your big-ass tape measure and do that.
Well, Jeremy says he wants to track the speed of the subsolar point a couple of 100 miles apart. And I said, and I asked over and over and over, how will he get the distance? How will Jeremy get 100 or 200 or 300 mile distance?
Oh, Google Earth, of
And
course.
what will that distance be defined?
By using surveys that have already been done that are based on a spherical model that he doesn't believe in.
Yeah, and once you get, to get a distance, it's defined against the surface. Is it an arc of latitude? Is it a chord? Is it across the surface? Yeah, even if you measure and you measure 6 miles, like along a railroad track, that's still an arc. It's an arc at an elevation, and to make it fit the rest of the survey, you have to reduce that to an elevation of 0 or the geoid. Yeah, distance is one of the most complicated things in all of surveying. Distance.
You're breaking up, Larry.
In all of surveying, distance measurement was like the holy grail. That's one thing that surveyors had the greatest difficulty in doing. Tape measures were the worst until electronic laser measuring came along, and then GPS came along. So it's distance. So yeah, they want a physical measurement with tape measure, right? Yeah, just go ahead and pick like the hardest, most difficult one to exercise.
Yeah, pulling chain is going to have a certain degree of inaccuracy associated with it.
Well, it's like in any high science application, that can be addressed. I mean, when the Coastal Geodetic Survey would measure 6 miles as a baseline, they would measure it as good as any other method. Only problem is it took them like 20 guys 6 months. And they would get, several parts per million. They could do that. It's just nobody wants to pour $100,000 into measuring a singular 6 mile distance. There is better, faster, cheaper. But if need be, the tape measure could be done. It'd just be hard. So yeah, I go out and measure something once every couple of days. Throw it in the data set. Improve the statistics. Address weather.
Oh, yeah. I was talking earlier. I don't know. I may run this thing a few more times, and then maybe we'll try something a little different, like setting some bags of sand up on the table in place of the lid. I'm not too wild about the idea of having to change the little balls inside on the balance. That's a pain in the ass. takes 2 days to change out the torsion balance.
I thought a 5-gallon bucket of concrete would have been a given, would have been kind of easy enough to do. You don't even hang it, just move it on, lift them into place and put them on stationary.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, except, sand's going to be about the same density. And I don't have to worry about disposing of sand. I can just take that out and toss it around in the yard, or lose it back in the garden or something. Concrete's a pain in the neck. Yeah, but I think that's what I'm going to do, is just a couple of 50-pound bags of place sand, and just sit them on the table, trying carefully not to bump the damn case there, the enclosure. I'll probably set up some vibration, some oscillation in the balance when I do that. So it doesn't take very much to get the thing swinging like a pendulum forward and backward in the case, not just rotating.
Can you use something besides lead? Just because these guys have been, ultra proving is that lead attracts lead. I mean, I still think we need to do the egg attract egg thing.
There's a very good execution of a Cavendish where the guy used copper and lead. So there's one down.
Yeah, I know. It's a stupid argument, but that's what they're making. I think egg attracts egg would just like really piss off a certain person who blue really likes to piss off.
There's another one out there that was done years and years ago. This is black and white television type, or black and white film, I suppose, where they had built a balance, and they had bottles of water hanging on the balance, and they had big boxes of sand that they were using on the outside, and it worked just fine. And of course, anything you use like that'll work, as long as you got enough of it, as long as it's got enough density. Some shithead's going to say, "Hey, show me styrofoam attracting pigeon feathers." Well, no, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't get enough styrofoam or pigeon feathers to do that. But
except styrofoam is so static. Styrofoam is so static, every pigeon feather in the room jumps to it.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how to ground pigeon feathers.
Yeah. Yeah. As I also like to keep pointing out, you can very easily show that it's not electrostatic forces at play in this experiment, simply by changing the material of the case around the torsion balance. Because you do that, you change the relative permittivity, and you would change the force if you kept everything else the same.
Well, while it's always tempting to use this to poke at the flat earthers, the other thing about it is that I've just really been pretty much unwilling to do is turn this into a flat earth issue. I don't give a shit about flat earth. This has been a very serious attempt to duplicate what Cavendish did, and to obtain accurate and usable data. Beyond that, if we can...
Blue, it shoots huge ass holes. It proves gravity exists, mass attracts mass, and that immediately blows a big ass hole in their stupid argument.
Oh yeah, I know.
They have to deny gravity because gravity is like the key to keeping the atmosphere, which means there's no container, which means the Earth is round, which means blah, 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 So you have to deny gravity because it's at the key to, even the Earth moves around the sun moves around the Milky Way moves around everything else, all based on gravity.
Yeah, absolutely. If gravity is real, it hurts them badly. And I agree with that. I understand. But you understand where I'm coming from too.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. This is just a measurement, reproducing Cavendish.
Yeah.
Even, hey, I hate to say this, but eventually you're gonna be done with this experiment. What are you gonna do with this thing? You're gonna donate it to someone? I mean, is there a science museum or something that wants it?
Yeah, it's probably going to end up going to a university.
You're gonna say someone would want it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically a mock-up of Cavendish.
Well, it's a fairly accurate reproduction of Cavendish.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
at
So you need
2/3
someone.
scale.
I mean, it
Well,
seems that
more,
some museums somewhere would want it or something.
yeah, actually, that wouldn't be bad, but I really don't want it in a museum. I want it sitting in a physics department somewhere that getting used once a semester because it's going to work
Well,
better.
they have a, but they have a much easier. Have you seen? I'm sure you have. I mean, for $700 you can buy the experiment.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but again, it's not a mock-up, it's replica, authentic in
Yeah,
every detail.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I mean, it's as authentic as you can make it in 200. So how many? 260 some years later?
222
222.
or 23, I guess now. 1798.
I still
Yeah.
think you should do the focal pendulum next.
If somebody will take this and actually use it, that would make me very happy. And it gets much more accurate results than any of those little $700 things get. You take one of those
Yeah, but
and
that,
get within,
as I remember,
if you get within
I remember
20%,
physics.
you'll be good.
If I remember physics lab, they broke you up into teams of 4 and gave you one of those things and said, "Here, do it."
Yeah, if you take one of those and get within 20% of the value of G, you've done well. This thing gets within 1%. That's pretty good. I'm going to write an actual paper on this thing. And then once I write the paper, I may just decide to submit it to a few publications. Wouldn't that make the flat earthers aggravated?
Yes, it would. I mean, I'm gonna hazard a guess that at least one of the major physics academies has a journal that deals with the history of science. Yeah, because I mean, when I was a member of the Institute of Electrical Engineers over here in the UK, the paper that the journal that I got every month was the history and teaching one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looked at just this sort of thing, people doing recreations of old stuff and new things in the teaching of engineering. And I'm sure a journal like that would be more than happy to publish this sort of work, even if it wasn't carried out in a university lab.
And now you got an empty, abandoned church down there with a big, tall narthex, big tall dome or something, you can redo the focal pendulum.
Where is that?
You got like an old abandoned church with a nice tall roof, so you can do the focal pendulum next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be great. And I've thought about that over and over again. And the problem I've had is trying to identify a site where you could do it. An old grain silo might be perfect, if I could find one, something like that. But if you can't get the length of it to 60 feet or so, you're wasting your time probably.
I've seen guys do it in stairwells. If you get enough space between the stairs.
Yeah.
I've seen guys.
Yeah.
There's a picture out there. Somebody using sandbags off of an interstate bridge. It wasn't an interstate bridge. It was like somewhere. They're speaking Spanish, so I don't know where they were.
But they have trouble controlling the environment, so yeah.
Well, it was a
rain-
calm day, and it was a calm day in this case. So yeah.
Yeah, on a calm day it'd be okay. But yeah, wind would definitely affect Foucault if you had any significant amount of it.
Just like your Cavendish box. You're gonna do it, gotta be done right. And with with a Foucault pendulum, the variable there is to move it. So yeah, you gotta do it at different latitudes.
Yeah, well, that's a little difficult to do because generally, with one focal pendulum, you can't really tell if the Earth is round. With the several, you could.
That's right.
And all the florists want to know why it's never been done to the North Pole. I'm like, are you familiar with what the North Pole is? It's a bunch of ice floating on an ocean. The last thing you can do is build a freaking focal pendulum.
Exactly. The only time of year that you can actually go and stand on the North Pole is the time of year you don't want to be standing on the North Pole.
Well, that's the other thing. You go, how come we don't have a picture of Polaris from the North Pole? I'm going like, because you have to be there in wintertime. And winter on the North Pole is not a time you want to freaking be there.
People don't go
Yeah.
there in the wintertime. God.
Yeah, no shit. I wonder why. Because it's freaking in the middle of the ocean and the weather's there is horrible.
Well, they actually do go there in the wintertime, but I mean, that's not a very
from
pleasant
submarines,
place to
maybe.
be.
From submarines, perhaps. But I bet it's
Cool.
cloudy too.
Hello, Sean Hawkins, Rob Barton, Hads.
I was going to say, just have a quick look at Had's last post, Blue.
Hmm?
I'm
Yeah,
going to say, just have a quick look at
Yeah.
Had's last post.
yeah, I see it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, Dave, a large aircraft hangar would be a really good place for Foucault's pendulum.
The ceiling, I know. I mean, yeah, if you get like a B-36 hangar or something, yeah, but
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, being actual Air Force and going in RAF hangars.
yeah.
Most of the RAF hangars will give you, 80 foot from the top. Just no, I'm not the one going up in the roof to sort it out for you.
Yeah.
I don't do heights.
I don't do them very well anymore either.
Yeah, I am in no way related to Fred Dibner. If you guys know who he is.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
He was a steeplejack up in
Steeplejack. Yeah.
north of England, sort of around the Manchester area. He's from Bolton in the northwest. And yeah, he came to fame because he started off doing a TV series for the BBC about steeplejacking, you know, about working on chimneys and what have you. And then branched off and did quite a lot of documentaries on sort of Victorian engineering, that sort of stuff. He also did steam traction engines, you know, restored them.
Oh, cool. In your chain here, there's a YouTube video of a balloon on a beaker that they put into a vacuum chamber, and they suck the air out, the balloon inflates, and then it pops itself.
Hmm?
Oh, where is this? It's in your... One second, let me get there.
Yeah, there's something about atmospheric pressure involved.
Share?
Yeah.
It's in video share. It's put there by Dart. It basically, they have a balloon over a Erlenmeyer flask, and it's in a bell jar, and they suck the air out, so the balloon inflates with the air from the Erlenmeyer flask, and then when it gets to the top, it pops itself on a pin that's placed there, and then it sucks all the, you know, the vacuum chamber is still going, so it sucks all the air out, and then it sucks the balloon back into the Erlenmeyer flask.
Yeah, I can't show.
There's that one guy who does a bunch of little tabletop science, and he had a helium balloon that was floating in a small chamber, and he evacuated it, and the helium balloon sank.
Yeah, try to explain that to a flirt. That's hilarious.
Well, that's exactly what will happen.
It's because the you know why it sinks, right? Because you take out the media, therefore it. Yeah, but you know, because you take out the media, and helium is less dense than the vacuum medium.
Gravity! Yeah. It's gravity!
That's right. The vacuum's got to be less dense than anything, right? So why doesn't the balloon float in there?
They keep talking about vacuum balloons. And the problem is trying to find something light enough that doesn't get crushed by the atmosphere. It would work.
All they want are tests that are impossible to perform, and even if you could, won't prove anything. That's what they
want, prove water sticks to a ball, and inside the gravity well of Earth, prove there's no gravity, or prove there's gravity inside the gravity well of Earth.
Oh yeah, you only prove, you just proved lead attracts lead. Does lead attract pickled herring?
That's what I said. You should do egg attracts egg just to get it back at a certain flat earther that.
And if you come up with lead attracting pickled herring, but did you show that while wearing short pants, standing on your left foot on a Tuesday?
Well, I think you need an inclinometer. That's my newest.
For those of you not up on the joke, there's a fellow, a flat earther, goes by the name of Dallas David, and Dallas is a little challenged from time to time. Today he tried for at least 2 hours that I listened to him to figure out how to pronounce inclinometer, and it kept coming out inclinometer. It was quite entertaining.
He has no idea how this thing works either.
No, he's absolutely clueless.
And of course, a plumb bob, he doesn't know. He starts off with the fact he doesn't know what vertical is. And everything goes from there. I think I'm going a week or so ago about making sure that you calibrate your plumb bob on the Equinox.
Yeah, Eric in the chat, absolutely. The gravity drop tower, that's quite a device.
Did you see the one that is this the one that goes up before it goes down?
Yeah. Yeah, it shoots the canister up.
Yeah, it shoots
Yeah.
canister up, and it's weightless from the end of the acceleration until it comes back down.
Right. They get
So
a full
basically,
10
their
seconds or
drop
more
time.
of, yeah.
Yeah, they doubled their drop time without making the tower 4 times higher.
Right.
It's a pretty ingenious solution. I don't think I would have come up with it. That's the same when the flat earthers on Brandon's channel going crazy when I told them that, you were still going up for the first half of the parabola of the vomit comet.
Yeah. Going up, the direction you're going doesn't describe the acceleration.
Well, they could fathom going down faster than you're falling, but they couldn't fathom going up. Page was probably how can I say this and be polite? I can't. Page is probably the biggest bitch in the world and right now. Couldn't understand it.
I feel sorry for Paige.
Yeah, she's an Australian flat earther. If you haven't run into her, thank your lucky stars. Of course, I'm always amazed by Southern Hemisphere flat earthers that have to ignore what they see with their own eyes when they look south at night.
Yeah. And every morning and every evening between September 21st and March 21st, when the sun rises and sets south of east and west.
Yeah, that's another issue. That's a harder one to get across to them because it just is.
Yeah, and it does the opposite thing north of the equator, too. Hmm. How does that work?
Well, the midnight Antarctic sun should destroy the hell out of these guys. And of course, they have to ignore that one too because they know it.
Rich 901, have a good evening. What's the red dot doing? Anything? Oh, it's moving around. I'm guessing it's about to start its way back to the right. I'm thinking we were seeing about when this thing was resting, it was around 201, 202 millimeters. So the center of this oscillation is probably around 185. But I don't know. I'll be right back. I need to get my notebook. You guys still there?
I'm still here. We lost
Oh, Shell left.
the shells. Yeah. I might end up dropping out because I've been having connection problems.
Yeah, I
Insomuch as
understand.
I even had to reboot the PC because I was getting such bad roboting. But I also just went through a little spate of drop, rejoin
Yeah.
because of Discord.
Oh, the chat says they're still there. Yeah, I can see you guys. So Sean's having problems with his flight controller. Says he let the magic smoke out. That's not good. Never
No,
let the
don't let
smoke
the
out.
magic smoke out.
Nope. I've done that plenty of times. Some of that magic smoke can be rather dangerous too. Not for a helicopter controller, but
Yeah.
some of the stuff I used to work with, you definitely didn't want to let the smoke out of it.
No, I, I only once, but I did once have a capacitor decide to not only let the smoke out, but set fire to all the paper dielectric inside itself. So I had flames coming out of it.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, especially not when the flames continued coming out of it after I'd turned the power off. Still, a quick blast from the CO2 fire extinguisher that was near to hand soon solved that problem.
Yeah, I've seen 480 volt systems do some amazing amounts of damage. I mean, impressive levels of destruction.
I think I was lucky. Nothing in the really high voltage stuff I ever worked with ever went kablooey. About the most impressive thing was the wire wound resistors that would vanish,
Yeah.
and they were wound on a ceramic core,
Yep.
and the whole lot would vanish.
Oh, those things will
They'd
just
get a hot spot and they'd just explode.
yeah, they explode. That ceramic will just explode. You just find little pieces of it all over the place.
Yeah.
I know. I've done that too. I've seen crazy things happen with new installations where idiots put metal flashing through a cinder block wall and left some sharp edges, and then pulled 480 volt, 2000 amp type feeders through there, cutting through the flashing and generating a very poor phase to ground fault. And that gets exciting because you don't have enough fault current to trip the damn breaker. What you've got's a 480 volt welding machine going off.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh because it's not really funny, is it?
No. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's
It's not
that's not
funny.
like
Not funny at
uh,
all when the spark show sets a pile of cardboard on fire that was right under it. Oh God, that was a fun day.
uh,
Thank goodness I was not in charge of that part of the project.
we at the at Knitted where I was at, they had a course coming from the training school that were being taught how to work on one of the radars,
Yeah,
the Type 84, and they were all over in the because that was a remote head from the engineering building on the other side of the site. So they were all over there, and they were doing the transmitter, and you know it's a 5 megawatt magnetron. So as you can imagine, rather a lot of rather a lot of high voltage stuff going on there, and the over the over voltage protection was basically an air gap between two stainless steel balls, because yeah, it's it's reliable, isn't it? It's a reliable way of doing it. Well, they all had to squeeze in behind the transmitter. It's behind the racks. There was a little walkway you could get down that was sort of like a couple of feet wide, and the instructor went to point to the balls, and he got his finger too close,
oops.
and it bit him quite hard, obviously. Threw him out of the rack, fortunately, but the wall was a bit close, so he bounced off of the wall and went straight back in. And consensus seems to be 4 or 5, maybe 6 times before he missed, and wasn't getting zapped by the full power going to the magnetron.
Ooh. That'll cook you.
Yeah.
Dog Walker in the chat says he had a 3-phase power factor correction bank, capacitor bank, I'm sure. Explode. Yeah, that gets interesting. For sure. Get a lot of fireworks that way. I was pretty lucky throughout my career. I never got zapped too many times. A few times, but nothing ever very serious.
I think I got bit 3 times that I remember. What one was because I couldn't put my arm far enough through the equipment rack. That so instead of sticking my arm up the other side of the rack to pull the switch, I stuck my arm up the back of the panel with the switch on it. And the problem was right next to the switch that I was after was a whole bank of fuses with sort of plus or minus 300 volts, 240 volts AC, minus 600 volts DC.
Hmm.
Fortunately, all at fairly low current, sort of amp or less. But
Yeah, it's not too bad.
still wasn't pleasant sticking the hand in.
No.
I might have jumped a bit.
I was always really good at one thing, and that was never putting both hands inside anything.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Well,
survive getting zapped through your hand and your elbow. You're not gonna die from that, but you get a heart path with it, and that's when you may not walk away from it.
yeah. I mean, when you're in the military, you're generally not encouraged to put your hands in your pockets, ever. But that was exactly what they did all through training school. Whenever you were looking something, whenever you're in the lab, you will keep your hands in your pockets unless you are doing something.
Yeah, real Cygnus is talking about it in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, I learned at an early age, real Cygnus, not to check the filament voltage on a 5U4B with an uninsulated alligator clip, unless you want to get your bell rung. Something about those hot cathodes on a rectifier tube like that. Whoops. Ouch.
Yeah. Hey, at least you mostly only have 110 volts coming out of your sockets.
Yeah. True. That's true.
One of the times that I did get a belt was because I cut through one of our mains cables, so 240 volts, with a pair of 10-inch tin snips, and it was live.
Yeah, that'll make a nice divot in the tin snips.
Oh, it did. It was also quite. It also basically made my arm twitch up rather a lot. The tin snips went about 5 feet up, hit the 7-foot tall cabinet behind me, bounced off and landed in the middle of my back. At least it didn't hit me in the head. Yeah, I was most upset because I'd been assured that all of the power that I was working in had been removed, had been turned off. Undocumented modifications, or at least incorrectly documented modifications.
I'm going to let this thing go through one more oscillation and then we'll switch the weights. I'm at about the midpoint on the time lapse right now.
Yeah. Yes, David, I quite agree. Nothing like the HT on the back of a TV CRT. And real Cygnus, yes, again, also the fact that the CRT itself is a giant dangerous capacitor that will self-charge.
Oh, hell yeah, it will.
Oh, one other thing I discovered, not with a TV CRT, but with like about a 14-inch diameter CRT from one of the radars. They're really hard to smash as well. Take it and dispose of it in the take it and dispose of it in the contaminated waste skip. Make sure it's not in one piece. Okay. Hurl it in there. Would it break?
Nah.
No.
So yeah, you can break the neck off of it. That glass gets really thick really quick.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because the screen end of it is so much heavier than the tail end of it, it just didn't want to land neck first.
Yeah.
Then I had to go and find a stick and knock the tail off the tube so I could leave the damn thing in there.
Yeah, Dave in. Correct, sir. Always take your rings off. I never wore watches or rings. Put all that stuff in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's a good way to lose a finger or a hand, for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to wear my wedding ring on a string around my neck.
Yeah. Sean Hawkins says the King of Sweden said after he touched the Leyden jar, I'd give up my entire fortune to not have to touch that again.
Yeah, I bet the big tubes out of old black and white TVs were for buggers. So, well, I think the worst thing about the tubes for the radar was when you installed them. They gave us decent personal protective equipment, but the big thick leather gloves they gave you to wear made it really hard to slide the tube, the last little bit into the rack, because you kind of didn't want to drop it because it was in a rack at sort of not quite at an angle that was such that if you let it go a bit early, there was enough weight to snap the neck off.
Hey, you got 22 people watching. Thanks for tuning in. All you people that are bored on a Sunday night, good to see you.
But Blue, it's not a Sunday night anymore. It's Monday morning now.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
It has been for an hour.
Okay, yeah. Well, I still got 4 hours of Sunday, so. Yeah, it's
Or
already
if
10.
anybody is, I was just going to say, if anybody's interested, I've just stuck a photo of one of the radar displays that we had in our engineering section in the Discord.
Yeah, we'll have to show it in the Discord. I can't show anything on
No,
YouTube.
that's all right. Well, I'm just saying for anybody who has access to the Discord.
Yeah, well, that's anybody that wants to
There's
jump on there.
There's a picture for them to come and have a look.
What's the radius of the arm holding the large masses? Eric says. It is slightly greater than 48 inches, but I don't remember how much greater. I could go look on the drawings in a minute. But I made its radius. I made its radius larger. It was a mistake that Cavendish made on his in his device. He let the radius of his large masses be exactly the same as the radius of the small masses. Then the problem is, if you do that, when this thing's sitting off center slightly, you know, like it has to be, I think 157 degrees or something like that is the number you end up with. Then you're not in line with the arc of the torsion balance with the large masses. So Cavendish actually makes a correction for that. I chose to fix it by increasing that radius. It's not much. I want to say the radius is something like 48 3/4 of an inch or something similar to that. I'll go look though. So I set it so that when the masses when the big ones are sitting in their rest position like they are right now, you can draw a line from their center line to a tangent line on the arc of the torsion balance itself. That's exactly perpendicular to the cabinet. If any of that bullshit made any sense, it didn't make sense to me. I hope it made sense to you. So in about 6.5 minutes, we're going to reverse these things. And hopefully we get a nice, steady, stable oscillation out of it. That's the way we've been trying to do it. Yeah, that looks right, Eric. Something like that. Except 24 3. Okay, yeah, 24 3/4, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go pull up the drawing. I could get up there and measure that, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. I don't want to be over there around that thing. It'd be messing up our measurements. Let me make this this switch over here, and I'll take a brief trip to the other computer and pull up the drawing and see what it actually is. Yeah, no perturbing masses nearby. Correct, sir. Well, I'm sitting exactly on the center line of the enclosure and about 5 feet from the end of it. So the direction of me is not pulling on the small mass on this end in the direction of rotation. So I'm not having any effect on it. Any more than Cavendish would have had in his. Because I'm pretty sure that brick wall didn't block his gravity. So now I'm going to watch this thing, and when it just starts to go back to the right, it's at 174 right now. I want it to go just past this peak, this peak, this extreme point, however you want to say that. And once it does that, then that's actually a usable data point. I think 174 is it. I don't think it'll go any further than that. And when it comes back up to say 175 or so, then I'll go switch the weights. Which it has just done. So here we go. All right, we're good now. So talk to the chat a little bit, Alan. Let me go look something up for Eric here. I'll be right back. I think I'll get some coffee while I'm in there.
So I've got to sit here and talk to you lot, have I? Eric, yes, I have an electronics background. I spent 9 years in the Royal Air Force as a ground radar technician on air defence radar systems. And then after my 9 years were up, when I came out, I went to university and did a degree in electronic engineering. But unfortunately, I've had a fairly severe chronic illness that's been affecting me since 1992. So I've never acted as a professional electronics engineer. The speed of the sound of loneliness. In air at STP, about 340 meters per second. It's the standard speed of sound, isn't it? In salt water, in seawater, near the surface. Well, for the southern North Sea, 1492 meters per second. Don't know. Not been that much into music, Dave. Yeah, it was fun times working on the radar systems. They're really useful for showing that the Earth is roughly spherical, at least in the area over which they operate. HADS used to work at yeah, SI. I'm trying to remember what those letters are because they keep changing the name of the establishment, and I can never keep up. Back in my day when I was in the RAF, it was Radar Research Establishment Malvern, where they did the work on the air defence systems that I was involved with. Pain travels at the speed of Legos. Indeed, pain does indeed travel at the speed of Lego. There is something that is more painful to stand on than Lego blocks. Eric, of course the radar signals will experience refraction. However, obviously, as refraction is wavelength dependent, the stuff that I worked on, which was sort of in the 10 centimeter wavelength at 3 gigahertz, it's essentially zero. It's essentially not. There essentially isn't any. You know, it's too small to measure. Raw signals and radar establishment. Yeah, it gets a pain in the backside when they keep changing the names of these things. Oh, only in the UK. Yeah, I'm assuming that's the answer for the thing more painful than standing on a Lego brick. Because yes, but Dave, we do have the best mains plugs in the world, don't we?
Well, I'm back.
Thank you, because I've been talking completely. Yeah, yes, the 13 amp plug. It is the one thing that's guaranteed to be more painful than standing on a Lego brick. No, they're not. Dave, I've not had huge amounts of contact with US plugs, but they're Blue. Do you tend in a domestic situation, in a domestic setting? How high up the wall do you have your power outlet sockets? Usually,
Typically, they're up about 350 or 400 millimeters, something like that. Tend to keep them pretty low. And it's really just sort of depends on what mood the electrician is in the day he comes to to set the boxes.
Eric, I hope that's the Tom Scott video you've just posted a link to.
Yeah, Eric, no problem. I couldn't. I remembered it wasn't very much different, but it is different. Uh, Dave in, yeah, the only play we have regs for the height of the outlets, the height of outlets that are in a garage.
I want to know is how come Tom Scott has been doing these videos for so long and he never looks any older?
Yeah, when you're talking about wall outlets, there is a regulation for that in in a garage area. There's a code requirement for it.
Well, it's really easy to make toast in a bathtub. All you need is a gas. All you need is a one of those propane burners and a fork, and then you can make toast in the bath with pretty much complete safety. Oh yeah, that was a good one as well, Eric. Tom on, Tom on the Tom on the 0G plane. Yeah, I guess if you live in a an area really prone to being flooded, keeping your electricity away from the floor is a very good idea.
Oh yes. I want to say our.
Unfortunately, at one place I lived, the room I was in got flooded twice.
I want to say our codes for a garage area require the outlets to be 4 feet. So that's a bit over a meter. 1.2, something like that. Oh, I like these oscillations. That's 100 millimeters.
Yeah,
More.
I mean, a water short should blow the breaker, especially if you've got a the ground fault, the 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 bit in there to trip it if there's a earth leak. Aaron. I forget the fancy name for them. I'm good at forgetting fancy names.
That's your name for what? For the ground fault? GFI? We're nowadays required not only ground faults, but in bedroom areas, you got to have arc detectors too. And those are expensive little bastards. Irritating too, because sometimes they just trip because they feel like it. Yeah, there you go. Reel's talking about it. His garage outlets are 48 inches and he had 5 feet of water. Yeah, that didn't help. You're right. Yeah, those arc detectors are expensive. You pay 40 or 50 bucks for one of those damn things compared to $3 or $4 for a circuit breaker or less. They've got 24 people watching now.
Yeah. RCDs trip very, very quickly at very, very low currents. I think the ones we have here are 15 milliamps.
I don't know. It doesn't take much.
Declan, thanks for the offer of the coffee, mate, but I think at 1:30 in the morning it's a bit not a good time.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. I just freshened up my coffee a few minutes ago. Hello, Rob Parks.
Rob, I think everybody's doing well. Yeah, it's
So far, our quest to disprove gravity has been unsuccessful. There seems to be a gravitational constant no matter what we do. Eric says he needs some coffee for his mathematical engineering. I don't know if you heard about that one, Alan. Sleeping Warrior told me that he had a mathematical engineer looking at his attempt at Cavendish, or attempt at whatever. That's not Cavendish, whatever the hell that thing is. The Tony Tub. Have you seen that?
Eric, you can't say mathematical engineering. You're going to upset the flirts.
Hey, that's what Anthony claims. He claims he has a mathematical engineer helping him. We're not really sure what a mathematical engineer is, but
Although, Eric, I have to say, I do agree. Numerical modelling is a fun thing to do.
hello. Uh-oh. Now, let's see. Yeah, I've been talking to you and you weren't hearing me. Damned Discord acts crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
Shut my mic off. So
Was that you going in and out, or was that me going in and out?
it was probably me, Alan.
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all good.
I've been chatting on nothing for a while, and I was like, I think they could hear me out in the stream.
Yeah, I think they were hearing you fine. It was me. Discord has been acting very crazy lately for whatever reason.
It's acting crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you didn't hear this. You didn't hear it because my mic wasn't working, but Eric's taking a jab at Anthony Riley, who claims he's got a mathematical engineer working on his attempt at whatever the hell you call that thing. We've been calling it the Tony tub. We're not quite sure what branch of engineering mathematical engineering falls under. Sounds important though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I say when I did do my degree, much to the surprise of many of my fellow students, instead of doing a practical hardware final year project, I actually did numerical modelling, completely computer based. Modelling acoustic propagation in shallow seawater.
That would have been interesting.
It was lots of numbers. I did get told off for nearly killing one of the servers in the department because it kind of hammered the hard drive a little bit.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good. Just rough numbers. Looks like we're showing a deflection of around 32 millimeters. And that's more or less right on top of 6.67 in the final analysis. So we'll see. Should be able to get some really pretty graphs from this one. I'm running it a little bit longer. This is a 600 frame, 20-second per frame time lapse. Got 27 people out there having a look. Hello, everyone. Good evening, or morning, or whatever time of the day it is. I totally agree with you, Eric. I would dearly love to see those guys get some sort of results, even just qualitative results. We shouldn't press them to try to actually measure uh, gravitational constants or anything like that. That's way beyond their capability. But at least you ought to be able to get the damn balance to move. Come on, guys, get with the program. That's an interesting comment from Declan. Submarine sonar shows Earth's curvature in the thermocline. Is that what you call it? Okay.
Yeah, thermocline.
That's that sharp break in temperature, is it? Is that what that is?
Yeah, very often they're actually temperature inversions as well, if I remember rightly. Not something you get in shallow water, so something I didn't actually have to worry about trying to model.
Yeah, Billy Taylor says, don't flat earthers deny gravity? Yeah, they do. Gravity is like kryptonite to those guys. If gravity exists, then we got an explanation for why our atmosphere stays stuck to the Earth. That means you don't need a dome. That means outer space is real. That means all these pictures from outer space are real. Their whole damn paradigm collapses right around their ears. So they'll fight tooth and nail forever over the reality of gravity. And forever we will simply point at them and laugh. Don't know how in the hell you can watch what we're doing right here and say gravity doesn't exist. Excuse me? What the hell else is making that balance move? It sure isn't me. Hey, Citizen 9. The measurements are going well. We've got a 600 frame time lapse, which is probably 2/3 done at this point. And just keeping an eye on it. Measurements look very acceptable. Pretty much the same thing we've been getting time and time and time again. Again, excuse me. If you only do this once, you don't know what you got. When you do it 3 times and it comes out the same, hey, you start to think, I might be seeing a trend here. But when you run this test, this is the 31st time, and every one of them shows the same thing. I think it's safe to say we're seeing the effects of gravity. The challenge here is how accurately can we measure the gravitational constant with a homemade setup in a guy's garage. And it turns out you actually can get pretty damn close. Hats off to old Cavendish, I'll tell you, to have pulled this off 221 years ago.
I think Rob Barton's got it exactly. If you're a con man, you can say anything. Stuff does not have to make sense; just has to sound okay.
Right. Well, no,
And that's
so
always the
go ahead, Alan.
that's always the hard thing when you're talking with these idiots as well, because they can say anything. They can say anything they like, anything that comes into their head. So they could be really quick with an answer, whereas we have to be careful in that we actually say the right thing and get stuff right. Oh, and guys, I did even manage to get my software running under Java, which was quite nice because the virtual machine, the run code would compile, and it was actually really quick after the first run through. Yeah, I think the Borland IDEs from the DOS days were actually really quite good because I'd learned a bit of BASIC, and then I had to do Turbo Pascal for programming in my first year courses at university, and then I had to learn C++, C/C++ for the rest of the program and for the other 2 years. Oh yes, Edge, they definitely hit you with the gish gallop. Pretty much, Rob. Science needs you to think first, talk second. Flat Earth and all the other science denial stuff. Yeah, you can talk BS and you don't really have to think.
Oh, citizen, no problem. Troll all you like. I don't care. I'm troll proof.
Oh, I've just seen the post. Yeah, I think helium-filled lead balloons are definitely the way to go.
Yeah, we can do it.
Satisfies both sides.
Yep.
Yeah. How much helium are you proposing to put inside the lead?
Well, lead's not all that strong, so they couldn't put a lot in there, I don't think. Unless it was really thick lead.
Oh, Mythbusters did do that. Did do a lead balloon, didn't they?
Did a what?
Remember the TV series Mythbusters?
Oh, yeah, sure.
They made a lead balloon.
Did they?
Yes. Yeah, but they had to make it just the right size. Because too big or too small, and you wouldn't be able to match the volume. You had to. They wanted to carefully. You need to carefully match the volume so that you get just the right balance between the volume of helium and the mass of the lead in the skin.
Yeah, well, if you can get the lead foiled thin enough and the volume of the balloon large enough, then, yeah, you can make a nice helium balloon out of lead, I would imagine. Although it's not something really high on my list of things to be doing.
Oh, it's immaterial how much helium you use. It can't be measured anyway, apparently.
Hey, hello, Sean O'Toole out in the chat. Good to see you. You should be blue now. Declan, you're absolutely correct. As long as you can bullshit, dodge, speak through your backside. Yeah, utter crap. Yeah, you're a perfect flurf candidate. Exactly.
I really must go and watch Mythbusters because as it was on Discovery, and I've never really had Sky TV, our satellite service over here. Never really got to watch it very much.
Eric's saying Mythbusters shot a cannonball by mistake into a neighborhood. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Obviously, they didn't kill anybody. I didn't hear about either one of them going to jail, because you sure as hell would go to jail for that. Sean says the last few seasons were horrible. No, it's just over time you're going to run out of things to do. I mean, at some point,
Yeah,
there's just no more silly
that's
ass
always the
myths to
problem.
go after.
That's always the problem with those types of programs. You run out of stuff to do.
Yeah.
I remember them trying to blow up a petrol station, gas station, with a mobile phone, and basically had to take it apart and damage it so they could get it to make a spark, and then put it in a enclosed environment that they put just the right amount of petrol vapor into to make it go bang. But at least, they managed to make it go bang, because we like a good kaboom, don't we?
Yeah, you got to get the mixture right. Turns out that's about one drop of
Yes, Sean.
gasoline
I
in it.
had. Sorry, I was just going to say to Sean that yeah, it was Adam Savage on his YouTube Maker channel that I saw him talking about them making the lead balloon and how difficult it was.
What's my take on Randy's defection? I don't know that Randy was ever that solidly in the camp of the flat earthers anyway. He certainly had to know that a lot of his observations were pretty good evidence for a spherical Earth. But when he handed his channel over to Brandon Toy, I wondered at the time if that wasn't where he was heading. So good for Randy. Took a lot of courage on his part, I think, to come out and do what he did. He was one of the nicer of the flat earthers, in my opinion. I mean, he was never terribly insulting. It wasn't insulting toward anyone. Not like the other mob is. I mean, look at what Oakley and Quantum Eraser and Sleeping Warrior and the rest of them, look at the way they treat people and the kind of things they say about people. They're just one string of personal insults right after another, which to me is a quick way of admitting that you've already lost the argument. Yeah, I agree with you. Randy always did seem simply focused on curvature measurements, observations. Sean Hawkins says, Brendan Toy, that lying sack of crap. Well, Brendan Toy's just not very smart. I mean, seems like a decent enough sort of fellow, probably a guy I wouldn't mind having a beer with, but he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, that's for sure. He seems to fall prey to the same trap most of them fall into, which is, I don't think I'm smart enough to do this, therefore there must not be anybody smart enough to do this. I don't think I'm capable of doing that, so obviously that guy can't be doing that. And that thinking amazes me. Well, you see it going on right now with Sleeping Warrior. I mean, we've got a machine here that clearly shows you the effects of gravity, and more than that, it accurately measures a gravitational constant. Riley can't even figure out how to get the damn balance to move. And because he can't figure out how to get the balance to move, that must mean this doesn't work. How does that logic work? I don't get it.
Is his thing still got the torsion wire affixed to a pivot?
That's how it started.
Or is he at least fixed that yet?
That's how it started. Now he's got it fixed, but he's not able to see any movement. But I don't think he can understand or appreciate how tiny these movements are. I want everybody to pay attention to the, let's see, we're close to the bottom here, at 180 something. But look at where the beam position is. It's 1.7 units, 1.7 divisions to the right of 0. I want you to keep an eye on that. Let's say maybe it went a little further than that. 2 divisions to the right of center. And write that down. 2 divisions to right of center. Now, when it moves up to the other end of the scale, we'll take another look at it. And keep in mind that each of those divisions is 0.05 inches. 50 thousandths of an inch. 1/20th of an inch. So not much over a millimeter. And we're in still a pretty big part of the swing of the oscillation. This oscillation is going to take it maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6/20ths of an inch. That's not a lot of movement. And I've got a very much ideal device compared to that thing that Riley and his boys came up with. That round tub thing is cute and interesting from the standpoint that you don't need any fancy or sophisticated method of centering the balance. It can just fall any place it wants to. And then you situate your large external masses appropriately. Okay, that's fine. But the problem is it really limits you on the positioning of those large masses. Now you combine that with people that don't understand math, despite the fact that he claims to have a mathematical engineer on his team. I'm betting that they can't predict They don't understand enough about it to be able to predict how much deflection they ought to be seeing. And we could calculate the deflection this thing produces very accurately, and we did. Before I ever built anything, that's what I did. To see if we were going to be able to get enough deflection with these masses and this geometry to be able to make any kind of accurate measurements. It's not that hard to do if you know just a little bit. Hold on. Oop, had to take a little break. Mrs. Blue needed to talk to me. Oh, let's see yeah, it looks like I'm still working. 30 viewers, hey, thanks for showing up, everybody. Declan says, those lead balls are moving slower than Sleepy's thought process. Anthony's not a dumb guy. He's a smart guy. He's just so invested in this this religious belief of his. I mean, that's all it is. Hello, Beach 8. What's going on? We're just taking another run at it here to see what the value of the gravitational constant is tonight.
I'm going to guess with Anthony. At one point, he was probably doing a lot better out of flat Earth than he was out of his bus business. Especially, of course, as I doubt if he was paying tax on his YouTube income. I may be wrong, I mean, that's just I think a lot of people get into doing this, get some money off of it, and don't even think about the fact that they need to report it as taxable income. Although maybe Tony would, because he's running a business, so he ought to know that anyway, oughtn't he?
Yeah, Citizen 9, thank you for checking on me. Somebody has got to be here at all times keeping me honest, for sure. Declan makes a point. Sleepy's father's a creationist. I knew he was some kind of Pentecostal minister or something. spends a lot of his time standing on street corners shouting at the rain, I think. Something like that. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I
I
don't know
thought that
anything
was
about it.
I thought that was Oakley's dad.
Maybe it is. I might have them confused. Yeah, but you know, nobody.
Oh,
You're not going to shake a guy from his religious belief. That's just the way it goes, and that's okay. It's all right with me. They believe whatever they want to believe. Don't really care. I'm not out to change anybody's mind. If some legitimately confused people need some straight answers, I'm more than happy to provide that. But uh, as far as most of these flat earthers go, they're going to believe whatever they want to believe. I'm not going to try to change them. And good for them. They make for nice content. It always gives me something to do. Although I'm not looking forward to very much the Cavendish being over because, you know, at least everything out here makes sense. When I have to go back in there and start debunking those idiots again, nothing makes sense. Let me go see how many frames we got left to shoot. All right, 85 frames, so that's a little less than 30 minutes since I'm shooting a frame every 20 seconds. So we'll be completely
We have
done.
curved answers.
I'm sorry, say it again, Alan.
I was just the flatulator. Can we have curved answers rather than straight? Straight answers give the flirts talking points.
Yeah. Rob, you're right. Flat earthers do not want a straight answer. The minute you sort out the confusion, they run. So I've done a total of 30 of these tests so far. And this is number 31, which is pretty handy because that comes right after 30. And I may do one or two more. There's no real need in it. But, you know, the equipment's sitting here, so why not? And then maybe I'll try something like I was talking earlier for people that may have missed it. I was thinking just to fulfill some curiosity on the part of certain people out there that maybe I'll set a couple of 50-pound bags of sand up there in place of the lead weights and watch that do essentially the same thing the damn lead weights do. And that won't be hard to do. The sand is cheap. I really am resistant to wanting to rebuild either one of these torsion balances. I will not rebuild this one that's in there with this tungsten wire in it. This thing is really working well. I've got the other torsion balance sitting over there on the workbench. It's got the small masses on it. I could replace those with some other material, I suppose. But just having to take this thing apart and put it back together, that's 2 days worth of work by the time you get the thing centered again and all of that. That's just a lot of time to prove something that we already know. And other people have used plenty of other materials. It's clearly not the material, it's the mass. So if I leave the lid inside and swap the lid on the outside for sand and it still does this, as far as I'm concerned, mission complete. What do you guys think? I'm not terribly interested in doing any of it, quite honestly. This was not being done to necessarily demonstrate mass attracting mass. That's a given. We know that's going to happen. This is being done to measure the gravitational constant. Apparently, flat earthers don't understand that. Declan 6914 Canthal wire. No, I have not. I've not used that. I tried a lot of different wire, just experimenting for my own knowledge and just to see what other material might do. So we've used steel like guitar strings. We've used some nichrome wire that was heat treated. We've tried stainless steel. We tried copper, pure copper. We tried beryllium copper. And finally, we've got this tungsten wire that's in there. All of them worked. Some were a lot more unstable than others. The stainless particularly was not stable. Might have become that way if I had 2 months to let it just sit here. But we don't have that kind of time available, so I tried several different sizes of stainless and just moved on. But that really was the issue. It was just the stability of the stuff. This tungsten is very stable. Yeah, that's Declan. That's what I thought.
I'm guessing.
I thought it was similar to nichrome.
I'm going to suggest that these advances in metallurgy have given you one big advantage over Cavendish when he did it, in so much as you have lots more choices for the torsion balance wire.
Well, today, of course, we can easily get copper 99.9% pure, anode copper. It's electrically purified, right?
Yeah.
That was not a process that was available in the day of Cavendish. Undoubtedly, the copper he used was some alloy or the other. Who knows what that alloy might have been? Maybe it was copper nickel, maybe it was mixed with tin or something else. Who knows? He didn't specify what it was, and I don't know of any way to find out. I just know that what he reported using, was not pure copper. He gave us effectively the size of it. If you go through his writings and take the length that he says and the weight he says it was, and work it out, you'll see it's somewhere between like a 29 gauge and a 30 gauge copper wire. Well, I've got a torsion balance that is identical in weight, actually a little less weight than his was. The small masses are exactly what he used, and my balance beam is about 2 feet shorter. So it's a few grams less, probably 20 or 30 grams less weight that he had. And when I tried to use 30 gauge copper, that was way beyond the yield strength of the copper. Could not hold the balance up. I had to drop it down to, I think, 24 gauge, 26 or 24 gauge before the copper had enough cross section to be able to support the weight of the balance. And at that point, the damn stuff is too thick. It's too large a cross section. It just kills the sensitivity. You can get very little movement out of it. So it just didn't, there's something very different about it, about the stuff he used and the stuff I had available to me. Now, beryllium copper, yeah, I was able to get that and get it to work. But beryllium copper, very much like the guitar strings, is pretty springy stuff, and that's not necessarily what you want either. Plus, beryllium copper, just like the guitar strings, tended to drift. So there was a constant movement of the 0 point. Over a period of days, you'd see it move 20 or 30 millimeters.
Yeah, that's not helpful, I suppose.
No, so even over the course of a test, you could have the thing move. You could have the center point move either away from you or toward you by 2 or 3 millimeters. And that's enough to throw the measurements off significantly.
Yeah. Doing the time lapse and actually measuring the oscillations.
Huh?
That helps remove that error, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Let's see. D Rabbit says, why is the metal of the wire so important? Variable stretch or something? No, not really. I mean, the material you make the torsion element out of could be anything. Effectively, you're just looking for something with stability to it. That's simply the bottom line. It's been done with various kinds of metal, usually tungsten. Same thing I've got in it now. But it's also been done with glass fibers. There's no reason why you couldn't use a material like nylon if you wanted to. Except that I think you could. Fishing line, in other words. It's just simply a matter of the modulus of rigidity of the material and its cross section and the length of it. if you've got unlimited ability to make to vary the height of or length of the torsion element, you could do pretty much anything you wanted to. The longer you make that wire, the more sensitive it's going to become. And it's very simple to figure that out. I've done a video or two about that, about how the calculations are done. Lemon smoosh smoosh. No, Cavendish does not smoosh smoosh with my eyes. Thank you.
I have to say though that my eyes are pleased to sit here and look at that joinery work you did. So that's something.
Yeah, I tried to. We don't have any details about that. I don't know how his actual enclosure was constructed, but I just know that from coming from that time frame, he probably would have employed a furniture maker to build that thing. And this is exactly the sort of joinery that a furniture guy would use.
Yeah.
The only difference, really, I don't have English wood that I could use. It just doesn't exist anymore. But the sapele African wood that I use is very similar. Same density, all pretty much the same. That'd be one difference, and the other would be they would have used I'm sure they would have used hide glue, which is still used today in a lot of applications. I didn't use hide glue, of course. I used regular PVA type wood glue. But other than that, I just tried to imagine how a guy in the late 1700s would have built this thing. And it probably would have been not much different than what I did. Back then, you didn't, there were no IKEAs out there in 1798.
No. And Cavendish would have been able to afford to have the equipment made to a very high standard.
Yeah. Well, woodworkers in that day and age were very serious people about their trade, and I just can't imagine they would have half-assed it somehow or the other. It would have been it would have been at least as good as what I've done.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've only got to look at furniture from that period, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
To see how it was going to be made.
Well, all of these woodworking techniques have been handed down. Gosh, it goes back to the time of the Egyptians. Certain kinds of joints, dovetails, for instance, have just been around forever. It's the strongest joint you can make in woodworking.
Yeah.
They're not all that easy to make, but when you get used to it, they're a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I did a few of them on camera, I think.
Yes, you did. You did do at least one video where you showed us making dovetails.
Yeah.
And my grandson Harry was about 6 months old at the time, and he sat and watched that. He sat and watched you doing that for about 20 minutes. I mean, it was just, you with a chisel and some timber.
Yeah, you don't need a lot
And
of fancy.
he
Don't need much.
sat and watched it, fascinated.
You don't need much in the way of fancy tools to do this stuff. Nice sharp chisel and a dovetail saw.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, you were chatting the whole time, and of course, I think your voice is also quite soothing to the young ones.
Well, I'm gonna miss Cavendish when he's gone, but I'll also be happy to have my shop back where I can get back and do what I really like doing, which is more of this woodworking stuff. I might even I might even crank up another channel and just do nothing but woodwork stuff on that channel.
Again, I'm sure you would get a decent audience for that. Because there's channels doing that sort of stuff, aren't there? But always room for more.
Yeah, there's lots of guys doing it. Lots of really good, I mean, top-notch woodworkers out there. People that absolutely put my ass to shame. Maybe I'll start making pieces and selling them. Who knows? And I have sold a few things over the years.
I guess that's a bit like my photography. I like to keep it as a hobby, but I have done a few paid gigs over the years.
Yeah.
And yeah, I photographed one wedding, and one wedding was absolutely enough to assure me that I really didn't want to have to do that again.
That'd be a little nerve-wracking. If you mess it up, you messed it up. And there's no going back.
I wasn't actually paid for that one. It was my ex, before we got married, had been invited to the wedding and found out that they couldn't afford a photographer and volunteered me.
Oh, okay. I know how that goes.
I thought you might.
Yeah, most of the better pieces I've made over the years have been things that I got volunteered to do for whatever reason.
I think the worst thing about photographing the wedding was I think I was straight off. I think I was straight off a 12-hour night shift in the car, 120 mile drive to get there.
That makes for a long day. G Hammer wants to know if the mouse is still alive. I don't know. Not if Jeremy has anything to say about it. Well, we're coming down to the end. Let me see how many more frames this thing has to shoot. Uh, 15, so we got 5 more minutes. Five more minutes and all our fun will be over.
Hey,
Oh,
Blue, look on the bright side. At least you're not outside shooting this time lapse in the freezing cold.
Yeah, I didn't catch all that. Say it again, Alan.
I said, look on the bright side. At least you're not having to sit outside with your camera in
Yeah.
the freezing cold while it makes this time lapse.
Yeah, yeah. A la Cavendish.
Although I have to say, I have enjoyed going out and shooting some of the time lapses that I've done in the middle of the summer, because yeah, it's actually quite pleasant staying outside. Or not that the nights are that long here in the middle of the summer. You know, when you've got 18 hours of daylight.
Yeah, you guys up there get lots of daylight.
And the night sky never gets past astronomical twilight.
Right.
But
I used to spend a lot of my time, well, 3 or 4 times a year in the central part of Sweden. And in the summertime, wow, it just
yeah,
never gets dark.
yeah, I would like to. Yeah, I'm going to say I'd like to get that far north. I never got a chance to go to RAF Saxavord, which is the most northerly military posting in the UK that you can get, or was the most northerly military posting you could get in the UK and still be in the UK.
Yeah.
It was on the island of Unst, and apparently, if you went to the top of the mountain that the radar was on, at the solstice, the sun would stay just on the horizon if you got up to the top of the mountain, because an extra couple of 1,000 feet above sea level kind of helps with that bit.
Yep. Billy Taylor in the chat. Yeah, some of them claim that gravity, that Cavendish has never been recreated. Of course, we only do it a few thousand times every friggin' year in universities all over the world, but yeah, whatever. On the other hand, in Sweden, that's in the wintertime, it's never gets daylight. I mean,
yeah, that is a problem.
yeah, it's finally sort of daylight at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by 3 in the afternoon, it's dark again.
Yeah,
Depressing.
that was. I mean, even here, I used to not like the middle of winter when I was working shifts, because you go into the building at 8 o'clock in the morning, come out at 8 o'clock at night, and it's pretty much dark. And by the time you get home, go to bed, have some sleep, get up at 4 and it's dark again.
Yeah.
So, you know, the 2 days, 2 nights that you're on shift, or yeah, essentially 5 days, you don't seem to see daylight for.
Yeah, back to some of my babbling from earlier. It's pretty much toward the top of its swing right now. And it's 3 divisions to the left. Maybe it'll go to 3.5. So we had 2 to the right, 3.5. Yeah, 5.5 divisions. That's all the movement you're going to get out of this thing in a pretty large oscillation. So I think that's one of the things that flat earthers don't really have a good feel for. It's exactly how tiny these movements really are. That's what makes it hard to measure. Hey, shout out to Roden, no last name, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Someone tried to get rid of a couch by putting it on the street with a free sign on it. After a few days, it was still there. He switched the sign to couch, $50. Whoosh, it was gone the next day. I can see how that would happen. All right, let me go retrieve the camera.
Okay, I've just gone back into the yes. Well, just had the computer crash again with a blue screen of death.
Oh, goodness. Billy Taylor says, Blue, if you do woodworking stuff, please don't be like Norm Abrams. Show how to build this chest at home. But I'll use $500,000 in woodworking equipment. Yeah. Yeah, Norm has a pretty nice collection of really nice tooling. I have a pretty nice collection of pretty cheap, really old hand tools, which you can find, and they are perfectly serviceable. And that's the stuff I like to do anyway. Well, we've got a time lapse. Look at that.
Am I back here, Blue?
Huh? Hello, Huey.
Hello there. What did I miss?
Yeah, I'm just kind of winding it down, Huey.
Oh, okay. I missed all the fun, eh? So I understand you got a new tungsten wire in the torsion balance.
Oops, sorry about that, Huey. I had to step away for a second. What? Say it again.
No problem. I understand you got a new tungsten wire in your torsion balance now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's what's in it. It's really worked well. Very happy with. I'm very happy with the way the tungsten worked out. kind of mad at myself for not trying that to start with. But the damn stuff is expensive. For a 25-foot piece of that tungsten wire, I had to pay $80.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a bit pricey, isn't it?
And not knowing how many of those I might have to go through, I opted to start out with the much less expensive guitar string approach. Try some of that sort of thing.
Well, if you use guitar strings, it'll be unstable like Gary Wybenger's head, you know?
That was a little bit. But actually, the guitar strings were the next to the tungsten. They worked just as well. They were probably the best.
What were they made of?
It's just spring steel. It's alloy carbon steel. Exactly what alloy, I don't know, but they work fine. Perfectly serviceable. If you're only trying to do a demonstration of mass attracting mass, they're perfect for that.
Did you happen to see Everett Anderson's video? Went up today.
I have not had a chance to watch it yet.
Well, that's interesting. You should listen to that. I think it's on Jem's server. It's a recording, and Ranty went in there, and Brian Mabbitt just really went off on him. He took his head off.
That makes sense.
You know, calling him a traitor, and he should give all the money back that he's got from super chats, etc. He's a liar. He's a traitor.
Well, Brian Mabbitt is a mental case. Everybody knows that.
Brian? Yeah.
You know, Huey, when you're in a cult, it's it's the sort of behaviour you expect from other members of the cult and leaders of the cult when you leave, isn't it?
Yep. And how Ranty is wrong because water doesn't bend, and when you see railway tracks go into the distance, they converge, and they don't really, but it looks like it, so it's distorted, and you know the usual arguments he makes.
What you mean, a complete and utter lack of understanding of perspective?
Yeah, it's perspective. I mean, it'd be stranger if they didn't do that, wouldn't it?
Yes.
There's no distortion. There's nothing distorted. It's just how perspective works, right?
Yeah, it's just how perspective works. I mean, you know, if you can do all sorts of things and get really weird things happen because of perspective. Especially if you can do it with photographs.
Yeah.
Because with a photograph, of course, you can make images of much wider field of views than the human eye can see.
Yeah, and there's forced perspective. You know the movie, what was the Hitchcock movie with the Bates Motel? Psycho, right?
Psycho, yeah.
Yeah, that's still there. If you go to Universal Studios backlot tour, they're all still there. And the house at the back of the motel where the old lady supposedly lived, that's a miniature. And it's up close to the motel, but you know, when you see it on the screen, it looks farther away. Forced perspective.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can do all sorts of fancy things with forced perspective. The other classic one is in movies is in Jaws
Mm.
when Roy Schneider's on the beach
Oh yeah, yeah.
with
The
his
classic
with
shot, yeah.
the where they move the camera.
Yeah,
They
the
pull
dolly
the
pull.
camera. They dolly pull. They pull the camera back and zoom in at the same time
Yeah, it's pretty
to
cool.
keep him the same size. I'm sure. I think it's a pull back and zoom in.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, you can tell which way they did it. If you pull back and zoom in, he stays the same size and all the stuff in the background gets bigger. If they dolly in and zoom out, all the stuff in the background gets smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, that classic shot, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
half of the lots and lots of movies use false perspective for a lot of stuff. It's, as Real Cygnus says, it's a famous effect.
Mm.
I just typed in the chat. I moved the big balls back to the neutral position, and if anybody was wondering how I did that, I just grabbed the hanger rod, that the one on the left side there is connected to, and just pulled them around in position. That's the easy way to do it without having to go to the other end and pull on the ropes. And that's fine if I'm just putting them back in neutral. I don't use that method ever when I'm trying to position them for a test. It's just too much risk that you're going to bump into the case with the big lead balls. And that makes the damn thing start swinging, and you see the laser dot bouncing up and down. But if anybody's wondering how I did that or what just happened, that's what happened.
Oh, Huey, I think you better introduce yourself because people in the chat are asking.
Oh yeah,
Hello, chat. My name is Huey. There you go.
big welcome to Huey. Huey drops in from time to time. Well, I've had the stream going now for 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's another 3 hours and 40 minutes of me sitting on this wood stool out here, so my backside's a little bit tired. I'm going to end the
Yeah, I bet.
stream at this point and relocate inside the house so you guys can hang around on Discord, and anybody else that wants to join, feel free. And let me resituate the equipment and get everything safe out here for the evening, and I'll join back up with you. I want to thank everybody for showing up. I really appreciate it. Really, thanks for all the super chats we got. That certainly helps. And with that, you guys have a good evening. We'll do this again maybe tomorrow, or if not, the day after. So, good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.
Good night, chat.
There we go, and we're off.